The very next shot looks like Jen putting a lid on a Sharpie. It is not a Sharpie. It is a pregnancy test. Won't let this moment pass us by. So today I thought I'd do something a bit different. I'm going to give you a director's commentary / behind the scenes of the pregnancy reveal video I did. So I have the laptop here with the video running, and I'm going to basically kind of in a minute go through this and just talk through what I did, how I decided to do what I did, why I did what I did, and maybe a couple of things that maybe I hadn't even realised. First off, I kind of just wanted to explain why I did it in the first place. So over the past year or two, a lot of people seem to be creating these sort of baby reveal images, these pictures on Facebook. Some of them quite cryptic, you don't know what the hell's going on, and some of them are pretty clever. And I kind of figured that I wanted to do something, but I wanted to do it my way. Anyone could Photoshop. I wanted to do something original. And a lot of people online post these sort of like pregnancy reaction videos where they tell their mum and dad or something. And it's all well and good. Some of them like are really shocked and happy and surprised, and some of them are kind of like just like over the top, almost seems fake, but I'm assuming it's not. And I kind of wanted to capture that moment. So I sat down quite early on and I quickly realised that I didn't want to just do a video that was purely their reactions, because maybe the reactions aren't quite what I expected and maybe it wouldn't be that great. So I guess I wanted to make something that was kind of cinematic, that told a story in such a way that no one else I've seen's actually done. So I decided to figure out what the story should be, how I should tell it, and ultimately I wanted to try and capture our parents' reactions. Now, no amount of planning whatsoever could really guarantee a particular reaction from our parents, so I had to assume that it would work and it would fit in to the rest of the story that I was telling. So the idea is, we're getting up, it's a new day, and we take a pregnancy test. And then we decide about, essentially in the video, how we're going to tell it to our parents. Just as simple as that. There's nothing complex about the story, there's nothing sort of like too much to it. But the idea is that in pretty much each scene, each shot that you've got, it kind of slowly alludes to what the video is about. So originally, the video was supposed to be put out there. It wasn't titled in such a way that you knew that it was going to be a pregnancy announcement when you went into it. So you press play and then it's kind of like, what's this? Where's this going? And each shot, it kind of like adds a bit more and tells you a bit more about what's going on. And some of you be maybe expecting that it might be a pregnancy announcement, so you kind of like, you pick up on things quite quickly. And it gets to the point where we'd show the reactions of the parents and you'd be like, just waiting for the reaction because you know what's coming. And then some of you, you'd be completely oblivious, and then it would sort of like hit you when you see our parents' reaction, and maybe even then you're still a little confused, but by the end of the video it's kind of like told you in black and white exactly what's going on. Basically, I wanted there to be a payoff in the video. I wanted the payoff to be either you know what's coming and you're waiting for reactions, or you're not really sure what's going on and then the payoff is the fact that we're pregnant. More than anything, the idea of this video is how well I can play with people's emotions. So I wanted to create a video that would make you cry. Given some of the people's reactions, I feel I've pretty much hit the nail on the head. And I was so excited. It's taken weeks to do, absolute weeks, because we've had to film different shots in daylight and different daylight. So sometimes it was sunny, sometimes it was cloudy, sometimes the clouds were coming over, so the light was changing so much. Sometimes we did it at night and we had to use artificial lighting, and then we had to bring all the shots together to try and make it look as uniform as possible. And throughout the entire time of planning and shooting some of this video, I just didn't know whether we could actually film our parents. We just didn't know how we were going to do it. We kind of had an idea, and I will tell you more about that when we actually get to the shot. We just didn't know whether it would work. But before I get into the video, what I want to make sure is that if you have not seen the pregnancy reveal, I'm going to put a link up here and in the description box below. If you click on that, it will take you straight to the video we're going to talk about. And you watch that first and then come back over, so you've kind of got a bit more context, and it doesn't spoil anything if you haven't seen it. Either way, if you've seen it or not, make sure that you click on that link anyway and share it with people, because it has taken a lot of effort and I would love for as many people to see this as possible. In order to see whether the video would work, what I did was I made a note of the story, the rough story, all the shots that I would probably need, and then based on that story and the emotion that I was going for, I then dug around trying to find some music that was about as long as I was expecting the video to be, which is about 2 minutes, and music that sounded emotional, that kind of like slowly ramped up, but at kind of like a midway point kind of picked up in kind of like a revelationary like uplift. I'm not, oh, my battery's running out. Battery's changed, so sorry about the shot being a bit off. But yeah, I kind of wanted the music to kind of like lift up, and that was kind of the point in the video where I wanted sort of like people's reactions to kind of kick in, pick my music, and then what I did is I went online, and each of the scenes that I had in my head and I'd written down, I basically Googled for an image that pretty much matched kind of like what was supposed to be going on each scene. Got all those pictures, dropped it into the timeline in my video editing software, basically created static screens of the whole story with the music, and basically got a feel for if I think it would work, and it did, and it was great. And we set out doing some test shots to replace some of those images, just to make sure I could physically capture what I wanted with the space we had in the house. And then we just went on to actually filming. So these shots were not filmed in order. I'd planned them out, so I didn't need to film them in order. I just filmed them in an order that made sense based on the lighting and the clothes we were wearing and other stuff like that. So the very first shot is Jen opening the curtains, and it is basically a physical reveal. So it's a pregnancy reveal, and the idea of her opening the curtains is kind of like revealing something. I'd originally tried doing a test shot in the bedroom. It did not work whatsoever, because I was trying to have like a really sort of like blown out light in front of her, but I couldn't get the balance right, and I kept seeing the trees out the front of our house and I just couldn't get rid of them. So I had an idea that if I did it downstairs in the living room, you guys wouldn't know whether it was the bedroom or the living room. And because we've kind of got like a blindy type diffuse net curtainy style things in the window, when the light came through, it bounced around, and the trees and stuff that are outside, you cannot see them at all, and it gave you this effect of this completely white, blown out look. Basically, I wanted that because I didn't want you to focus on what was out the window, because what was outside the window was kind of irrelevant. I also had the camera sort of like zooming out as she was doing it, again showing a little bit more of the frame, again that whole reveal sort of like aspect of things. The next shot is Jen coming to wake me up. The next shot was never really something I planned, but while I was doing some sort of like shots of Jen in bed, kind of like thinking and stuff, I kind of really liked the cup she was holding. It had something about a lovely love story on there. It was an Edward Monckton cup, I think it is, she says, and it was kind of very appropriate. So I had to hold it in such a way that I could actually see it. The idea was that I would focus from the cup past her onto the teddy bear in the background, and that teddy bear in the background was actually a teddy bear we bought back in October when we went to Disney World. It is Duffy the Disney Bear, probably about the time, like just a few weeks before he was sort of like retired. I don't think they do Duffy anymore, at least not in the US. He may still be around in sort of like Japan or something. That is basically the very first toy that we bought for our baby to be, because we've been planning on having a kid for quite some time. The idea was to go from this lovely love story, and it's kind of like two dinosaurs with a heart, and then it kind of like focuses in on the teddy bear. It's kind of like the product of this love story, and that was the idea behind that. And I kind of wanted to sort of like drop different bits in to kind of suggest what it is. And I know one of you said that you figured it out based on the teddy bear, and that's great. We actually tied ribbon around the teddy bear's neck in the foot to make it look like a tie, and that ribbon is an offcut of the ribbon that we use for the presents later on in the video. And then as she's putting it down, it just takes a wide shot of her kind of like contemplating things. And in this shot here, if you look in the very far right, you'll actually see the Expectant Dad's guidebook or something like that. It's basically a book she bought for me in anticipation of us having a baby, and I carefully placed it on the right, so if you actually read it, it says Expectant Dads. It's kind of like a little Easter egg. And then she puts a drink down and she's contemplating what's to do. So the next shot is her going into the bathroom. You may or may not be able to tell it's a bathroom. I tried to make sure the shower curtain was over so it was a bit more obvious. But short of her sitting on the toilet having a tea on a stick, I wanted to allude to what she was doing, and then it cuts to my foot and me tapping on my foot in a agitated manner, impatient waiting as I'm waiting for her to come back and give me the test results, and then to me tapping my fingers together as it slowly zooms in on my face, and then in time with the music I actually look over to the side to see her coming through the door with a big smile on her face because she's happy, it's positive news, and that is her revealing to me that all is good. And then it cuts to her going to the love seat in our living room and sitting down with a notebook. Again, in that scene on the right hand side, you'll actually find the exact same book that was in the bedroom, and then she goes to pick a Sharpie off a stack of books, and those books, the very first one is Planning to Get Pregnant, the next one is my book, Expected Dad's Guide to Pregnancy or whatever, I can't remember what it was called, and then on top of that, hiding it so it's not too obvious, is addresses and birthdays, sort of like a little notebook thingy. I actually used the pen to underline the word birthdays to kind of sort of like point out that this is what it was about. It was about a birthday. Get what I mean? If you knew those books, if you read that book by Rob Kemp, you would know what that book is. It's just a great way of me kind of putting it in your face. We're pregnant. This is what this video is about without actually telling you exactly what it's about. She picks the pen up and then she starts writing a note to her parents. The note to her parents, it was notes that I'd sat down and tried to sort of like thrash out with Jen. We had 3 notes. They're all different. One for her parents, one for my mum, and one for my dad. And each of the notes pertained to the contents of the box that you will see in a moment. And it doesn't tell you what it is, but this one sort of like thanks her parents for allowing her to grow something. And then it's like you might need this kind of comment. As they open the present more, you actually find out that there's a baby growing there. And for my dad, it was a bib, and for my mum, it was kind of like a hat and gloves, mitts sort of thing. It was quite nice, but it took a lot of time trying to figure out what to actually write in these things. The very next shot looks like Jen putting a lid on a Sharpie. It is not a Sharpie. It is a pregnancy test. Right in your face, but tried to be hidden in such a way. I shot it at double speed so I could slow it down so I could really have a sort of like slowly putting this lid on. The Sharpie that we used was carefully selected based on one that looked extremely like the pregnancy test. So the Sharpie was like grey and blue, but with a bit of colour grading, the white and blue of the pregnancy test, and then held in a very specific way. I think we almost had a divorce, me trying to explain to Jen how I would like her to hold this pregnancy test so that, you know, I could actually film it in such a way that it didn't look like a pregnancy test. It looked like she was putting the lid on the Sharpie. I would be surprised if any of you figured it out, and if you did, let me know in the comments down below, because I want to know who it is that figured that wasn't even a Sharpie. And if you are shocked that it isn't a Sharpie, and you want to let me know how amazing the fact that I hid that in plain sight was, let me know in the comments below as well. So the next shot is Jen wrapping up the presents. It was cut in such a way that you could just make out the fact that it was like in the very first frame, you could just make out that it was something baby related. It was soft, it was white, had a kid's pattern or whatever, but it goes away so quickly that if you weren't really paying attention, you wouldn't really notice. So she folds it over, and then she gets the note that she's written, places it on the top, and then pops the lid on. Ties a little bow in a gender neutral yellow, because we don't know the sex of the baby, and it's the same ribbon that we used to tie around the teddy bear's neck. In the next shot where she's actually got a pair of scissors and she's cutting the ribbon, I wanted a shot of her cutting the ribbon because I wanted it to kind of emulate cutting the umbilical cord. Seems a bit gross, but it was, again, a little nod to the fact that we're having a baby. And then she stacks the 3 presents together, so you know that there are 3, there's not just the one. And who are the others for? We go to Jen's parents. This took me forever to try and plan out, because I was thinking, how do I record Jen's parents? How do I record any of our parents without them thinking, why are you recording me? I didn't want them to act up to the camera. If they knew that I was recording something, I didn't want them to act in such a way that wasn't natural. This was actually taken just before we went on our cruise. Literally the day before, we'd gone up and we'd prepared the parents and said that I've got a new lens, which was true, and I would like to take a photograph, a family photograph. Why else would I have a tripod and a camera set up? Briefed Jen exactly where I wanted everyone to be stood, how I wanted her to sort of like present the gift and what have you. It was a bit of a ruse, and we were supposed to be taking this photo. So this was the tricky bit. I needed to basically know and predict exactly how people were going to react in such a way that I could use it for this video. And the assumption was that if we gave the present to Jen's mum, that Jen's dad may not be quite so interested. He may possibly walk off or stand aside because he just like let Jen's mum open the present or whatever. But what I knew is that if we gave it to Jen's dad, Jen's mum would be very interested in what it was. She would be very eager, very keen, and kind of just would want to get in there. And it helped bring them together and make sure that they're both interested in the present. So that was the plan. We give it to Jen's dad. So the idea is they open the present, there's a note, they read the note, it's a little cryptic, don't really know what's going on, and then they open the actual sort of like the tissue paper we had in there and get the present. And then the idea was to kind of like, for this split second, for them to kind of be like, what's just happening? And then I wanted to see this really big sort of like revelation of like, oh my god, and that was the plan. And I have no idea why or how, but it worked flawlessly. I could not have expected or predicted a better reaction from these two, and it is brilliant. It's quite a long scene, and rather than cutting up giving the presents to the different people, I quite liked keeping this quite long because it added suspense. It was, if you'd figured out what was going on, it was a little bit longer, and it was to kind of like make you really kind of like work. I want to see their reaction. Jen's mum's face is a picture. At that point I pick up the audio and make sure I match it up with about a part in the track as well where it lifts up anyway. I think pretty much every time I started editing this, it gave me kind of like chills when I saw that bit. It was really emotional. So I managed to set up the camera for her parents, but my dad and my mum, I had to do differently. I went up to see my dad. We did it outside, and we just used the regular vlogging camera for this, so it looks a little different. And then with my mum, it's a similar sort of instance. I was supposed to see her straight after. Well, I never actually agreed. In my head, it was fine. I'd go and see her straight after the cruise, but she wasn't around, so we had to wait a couple of days, and we kind of like went towards Birmingham to meet her in a pub where we gave it to her. So it wasn't an ideal situation. It wasn't what I had planned. But it seemed to work okay. So Jen's parents' reaction was bang on the money. My dad, he was kind of what I expected, but he was a bit more emotional than I was anticipating, which was nice to see. I just wasn't expecting it really, and I think it made me more emotional at the time because I wasn't expecting him to react quite like that. But he was super excited. You can see on his face and in his voice, it's quivering. My mum, we were expecting her to be a bit more reserved. I think she's been quite expecting that we'd be having a baby for quite some time, and the fact we had to go out of our way to try and meet up with her, and it's like, why would you travel for like an hour or so one direction then back just to meet me for lunch? So I think she was expecting something, so it wasn't so much of a surprise for her, but she did seem really happy, which was nice. I just edited all these clips together in such a way that, I don't know, it felt like it made sense to me, and it was nice and filled the time that I had available. And I actually had to sort of replay a little bit of the clip with my dad. Sort of like the end of one clip was the beginning of the next clip, because I was like, I don't know, about a second out in my timeline and I had nothing else to pad it with. Don't think I've seen Jen's dad smile so much. Unfortunately, Jen's mum kind of ruined this last bit. Not in a bad way. If you're watching this, Karen, don't need to worry. But she came over because obviously she wanted to give us a hug or whatever. So it kind of got right in the shot. So I had to, in post, zoom in as much as I could to try and clip out everything. The camera got knocked a bit, and you can see Jen's mum's arm in the shot. But it's nice to see Jen and her dad having a nice big hug. A couple of days before I actually posted this, we'd gone to get our scan. So I took a photo of it, put the due date on there, which is May, and then gave people that may be new to our channel an option to follow the story. And that was pretty much it. There's so much more I could tell you about it in different ways, little bits here and little bits there. It's like, We had to rearrange the living room a little bit because the shot over Jen's shoulder where she was writing, there's no way I could get a camera behind her. So we had to bring the sofa into the middle of the living room so I could get the tripod behind her so that I could actually get the shot I wanted. I had so much fun making this, and I hope you enjoyed watching it. It was pretty painful for Jen because she couldn't cut her fingernails, and we were recording this like over the span of 2 months or something, because it was before the cruise, and we went on the cruise and then came back from the cruise and I had some more stuff to finish. In fact, we were still recording stuff the very day before we posted the video, so it took forever. So she had nails she couldn't cut for continuity. Frustratingly, I actually had to get my hair cut before the last couple of shots. Hopefully you guys didn't notice. We had to deal with wearing the same clothes, and it was a bit of a nightmare, but it was so much fun to do. I absolutely loved it. And then when it came to editing, it took me hours and hours to edit, and I was just sat there, and every time I played it put a massive smile on my face, and I just kept wanting to share it with Jen. At this moment, I think it's been seen about 4,500 times, and what I wanted more than anything was people to see it and appreciate it, and I think people have, and I've really enjoyed making it. I really enjoyed doing it. I really enjoyed sharing it with you guys. And hopefully it's something we get to look back on in the future. It's something that most people never really get an opportunity to capture. And we get to tell a bit of a story around it too. Thank you very much for watching this behind the scenes making of whatever. I'd originally started doing behind the scenes footage for this, actual behind the scenes footage, but I stopped halfway through because between doing the behind the scenes footage, the regular daily vlog, recording this, as well as living life, I just couldn't do it. There was way too much to deal with. So I just kind of like left it at that and figured that I would just do this if I wanted to talk about it. Make sure you've watched the video if you haven't. Make sure you watch it again and share it with everyone if you liked it. Give this video a big old thumbs up if you liked the little talk through. And if you're new, subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys for a regular scheduled vlog tomorrow. Annoyingly, we seem to have misplaced the tape measure, so Jennifer is using the spirit level to try and measure how much wallpaper we need. So yay for Jen using a spirit level,